Hello everyone, Eric Padden once again, and thanks again for taking a look at my video. On this video, we're going to be talking about Lindsey Williams, if you've heard of him. He's kind of had a connection with the elite, for lack of a better term. You hear Alex Jones calls them globalists. Many people talk about the secret societies like the Illuminati, or nowadays the Bilderberg Group is pretty much out in the open. But for lack of a better term, we'll just call them the elite in this video. And is it true that the elite are conspiring to basically crash the currencies around the world and make us beg for this new world order as a solution and get them their goal for many, many, many years? Their stated goal has been to create a one world currency. And so I believe that if you open up your eyes and you look around, it's pretty obvious that there's a coordinated effort, whether you want to call it a conspiracy. Whenever two or more people or companies conspire together, I guess you'd have to call that a conspiracy, wouldn't you? However, they've tried to kind of make this whole conspiracy thing kind of taboo, and make everybody that talks about any type of conspiracy is kind of like some lunatic or what have you. But in reality, I think more and more people now are waking up. When you see the things that are going on around the world these days, it kind of makes you wonder. And so Lindsey Williams has had many of the things that he's leaked out have been proven fact. And so interestingly enough, we have some new things that have been leaked out recently that I thought were worth sharing. And bottom line, the elite has conspired with China to basically own, buy the US, to change different laws and so on to where they can basically buy without anybody watching, without having any transparency. And you're already seeing it where you've got very big companies, some of the biggest companies in the United States, and some of the best jobs that Americans have are disappearing. And when you look at the big, multi-million, even billion-dollar plants that have been built nowadays in China, there's a lot of strings attached. And of course, you never hear about this, but as an example, Caterpillar, okay, biggest company in the U.S., has all these new plants, billion-dollar plants in China. And the deal was not only for Caterpillar, but Boeing. You can look at GM, Chrysler, many big American companies, to go over there and get that cheap labor. They said, yeah, you can come over here and build, and you can get our cheap labor under the condition that we get all of your patents. And so talk about selling out America. We have now been giving the Chinese our patents for some of the best products that we make in this country. And so now you wonder why you're seeing all these great knockoffs in China. They basically reverse engineer everything. We don't have to do that anymore. Now we just give them the patents. And they've got, majority of our debts, so they kind of, manipulate their way into these different deals and so on. And so I think there's a lot of evidence to back up that claim that maybe the elite are conspiring with the Chinese to basically their goal, stated goal, is to knock the United States back to third world country status, to basically eliminate the middle class. Now, interestingly enough, you're seeing a lot of other evidence to back up the claims that the elite has also conspired with the Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East. And I hadn't even really heard of the Muslim Brotherhood. I was like, who in the heck are they? And I guess, from what I understand, they're supposedly, they don't like the West, but I guess that's another one of their tricks with the disinformation, is to go over there and give the illusion that we don't like the West, and yet behind the scenes they're working with these elites, if you will, and the goal is to create a lot of turmoil and crisis in the Middle East, which we're already seeing. And interestingly enough, they pegged it. Lindsey Williams said you'll see it first in Egypt, which we've already seen, and then you'll see it in Tanzania or whatever it is. You'll see basically listed a bunch of the countries over there. It was like a map of the Middle East. Libya, he says then you're going to see it in Jordan, Yemen, Turkey, Morocco, Kuwait, and the last place will be Saudi Arabia. And that they're basically in cahoots with these Middle Eastern, countries, OPEC and so on. And I guess part of the big plan is to double cross these Middle Easterns in the end. They estimate that it's around 2012, late 2012, when they will crash the dollar. And you might be aware that over 70% of the dollars are actually held outside the United States, okay, even though that's our currency, because other countries are forced to buy gold, their commodities, not necessarily gold and silver, but more oil and the wheat and so on. They've always been forced to hold dollars for those transactions. And you might have heard recently, the Chinese are now saying, nah, that's okay. We're not going to use, even though you say the dollar is the reserve currency, we're going to do business with Russia for our oil and Iran, and we're not going to even use dollars. We're just going to use our own currencies and create our own trade, basically cutting out the dollar. And so that's the beginning of the end. When that starts to happen, that's because the Chinese, they don't want our T-bills and bonds anymore. They know that we're not good to pay them back. They've seen this happen before, where whenever the debt-based currencies are winding down in their final phase, basically they've got so much debt at that point that they try and inflate their way out of the debt. So bottom line, if I owe you $1,000 and I've got $10,000, I'm giving you 10% of my wealth, right? But hey, what if I just printed a whole bunch more and now I print $100,000? Now to give you $1,000 doesn't seem like such a bad deal. Man, no problem, I can do that. Well, that's what these countries do, okay? To simplify it, that's what they do in these cases. And the writing's on the wall. They're basically saying, we're not going to take any more of your treasury bills and bonds. So what happens? The Fed says, no problem, we'll print them. We'll tap in the keys in the computer, we'll just create them ourselves. And so we're at the very end of this cycle where we're banging our head up against the interest on the existing debt. And you might be aware we just went over the debt ceiling. You heard Timothy Geithner talking about how if we went over the debt ceiling, it was going to be a catastrophic consequences. But since we didn't approve, over 70% of the Americans weren't interested, some estimates over 80%, weren't interested in raising the debt ceiling. We'd rather see them cut back and start having some fiscal discipline. So they just kind of quietly went over the debt ceiling, and about the 3rd, I think it was, of this month. And so interestingly enough, we're in a technical default, and so we shouldn't be able to borrow any more money right now. But we are, and I'm sure they'll find a way to raise the debt ceiling once again, just like they always do. And what that means is, even though you've reached the debt ceiling, which means the banks are saying, we're not going to give you any credit cards, you're not good for it, we don't believe you can pay us back. If you're the Federal Reserve, you say, wait a minute, we are the banks. We're just going to give ourselves a credit card anyway. And that's what they're doing. And so this only works when the world allows us to get away with it. Well, when the world says, no, we're not going to play your game anymore, you're done. Ponzi scheme over. And so that's where we're coming to the end now. And so in 2012, when all this comes to a crashing halt, you're going to have these Middle Eastern countries that are holding on to just, billions, if not trillions of dollars that are now worthless. And what do you think? You think they're going to be a little steamed about that? Absolutely they are. And it's all by design. And so what's going to happen then is, of course, the U.S. will be forced to tap into some of our own oil reserves and stuff, because you can bet they're not going to give it to us. In the short term, though, we're going to be paying $5 a gallon by the end of this summer, 2011. Going into 2012, they have predicted that you will be seeing $7, $8, possibly $9, $10 gallons of gas in the United States. And, we'll have no choice but to tap into our own reserves. And that's there. We've got a lot of reserves we would hold on to, because as long as they're going to take our worthless paper for the oil, you might as well take advantage of that. But that's all coming to an end now. You're hearing about food shortages, and I believe there's some legitimate food shortages out there. But I believe the bigger problem is going to be the inflation, even hyperinflation of the currency, is the food that is there isn't going to be affordable for the average person. And so what you need to be doing to protect yourself, the elite are trying to destroy silver. It's one of the reasons they've kept the value so low. They already control most of the gold on the planet, but they can't get a hold of the silver, because the common man, people like me that put this away, we're not letting it go for less than $500, $600, $700 an ounce. And they know this. And so they'd rather just destroy it. And so they've had a coordinated effort for many, many years now, through their manipulation in the precious metals markets, to keep the prices down. And we're now learning it wasn't just about keeping the confidence of the fiat currencies, the debt-based fiat currencies around the world, but it was also about making silver get used up industrially. Because the more they can encourage companies, which they own many of these companies, they buy up the patents, the more they can encourage the use of silver as an industrial metal, the more it's used up and disappears. And that's their biggest concern. They want to have a bunch of debt slaves that have to come to them, that don't have the independence to be able to fight back. And they're doing a very good job of creating that. But luckily, in America, even though our Constitution has been eroded, it hasn't been completely destroyed. And it's my belief that there's a silent majority out there, and hopefully you're one of them. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of network, and we're going to keep educating people and keep empowering people. And we're going to get the guns and the ammo to protect our families and our food and our gold and our silver. And we're going to turn all of our paper into physical silver, physical gold, so that we can get through this and we can come out the other side in a position of strength. And if we got to play the game and get in their new currency or whatever, if they'll pay us a fair price for it, we'll give them our silver and we'll start over in that new, hopefully it'll be a gold or silver backed currency that there's a little more discipline in. But either way, one thing's for sure, they don't want to have the common man with gold or silver. And so it makes sense to me that they really are trying to destroy it because it's easier than trying to get it out of our hands. So I think there's really something to what Lindsey Williams says, and you can do your own research if you'd like, but I think there's enough evidence out there nowadays, and they've been proven many, many times that these companies, we've become, an oligarchy where we're not about the people. This is no longer a country that's by the people for the people. It's more by big business and rich, greedy bankers, and for the big business and rich, greedy bankers. And it turns out now those greedy bankers are bought up with most of the big business. And so that's the problem, is they're just raping the people. Most people don't know that the majority of your federal income tax, currently over 90% of your federal income tax, goes to paying interest on artificial debt that shouldn't be there in the first place. Look at my other videos on debt-based currency, and you'll find that we have to pay interest on every dollar that's created from the moment it's created. Instead of doing it through our treasury, as the Constitution dictates, where the currency is created without interest, and there would never be interest charged on it until it was, a product or service exchanged. It makes sense if you buy a home that you pay interest on it, but guess what? The money to buy your home, when it was created, you're paying interest on that. And it's all going to these greedy bankers lining their pockets. It's been doing it since 1913 when they created the Federal Reserve. I believe that the Federal Reserve is coming to an end. And I believe that we're going to take this country back. And so keep educating yourself. Keep putting away silver and gold and put yourself in a position of strength. Put away at least a 6-month supply of food that you actually eat. Make sure you get a lot of rice, beans, things that are cheap that have a lot of calories. Make sure to put a lot of canned foods away, things that you actually eat. We might have to go through stretches where we don't have food on the shelves. We can't afford to buy the food that is on the shelves. So prepare now and help your family get through this. And when we come out the other side, I think eventually America is going to get back to being for the people, by the people again, and we're going to be going, back toward a constitutional, life here in the United States. I'm really excited about that, but I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So let's work together. My name is Eric Patton. If you're interested in getting silver or gold for yourself, I have a wholesaler rate, and I like to help people out getting their gold or silver at the guaranteed lowest wholesale rates. If you want to have a coin shipped out to you on auto ship every month, ISN, International Silver Network, is the best. I compared them all. It's the best silver MLM out there. You can feel good about what you're doing. Worst thing that happens when you get somebody involved in our program is a year down the road, they're sitting with a whole bunch more physical silver, and they're in a much better shape. It's my opinion. This is going to go from the 38 bucks it's at today to $400, $500, $600. That's the real value of this within a very short period of time. And so if you'd like to give me a call, you can do that at 858-705-2487. If you would like to jump on my blog, I've got a lot of great videos on there, and you can jump on isncoinsbusiness.com. Once again, Eric Patton, 858-705-2487, or isncoinsbusiness.com. And if you're looking at this on YouTube, you can just click the link below. That'll take you to my site, and you can learn how to get your silver sent out, maybe how to get involved in the business opportunity. If you want to create a win-win, share it with somebody else who should be putting silver away anyway, and you can make a residual income and maybe get your silver for free. So once again, thank you very much for your time. I do believe that the elite are up to something, and I believe it's up to us to be able to put ourselves in a position of strength where we can work through and come out the other end of this thing and be in a position to rebuild. And thank you very much again for your time. Have a great day. I'll catch up with you on the next video.